When Claudia Galvan asked me to talk to you tonight about my career in engineering, my first reaction was to feel flattered. My second reaction was total panic. How to distill over 30 years of engineering experience into a 20-minute talk? Well, any engineering person knows how to take a big problem and break it down into smaller, manageable problems. So I calculated that by rounding down my experience to 30 years exactly and dividing it into 20 minutes, I could spend 0.67 minutes on each year. This seemed both difficult and boring. So instead, I systematically created a very long list of memories and lessons learned. And you can relax now because I brutally discarded the vast majority of them. I hope that what remains clearly communicates to you how much I've enjoyed my engineering career, and it is still ongoing. It has not been so much a career as an adventure. Storybook, no. Challenging, yes. Have I achieved all my personal objectives? No. Have I been involved with leading-edge technology? Absolutely. Have I worked with smart people? Definitely. Have I had opportunities to expand my cultural horizons and travel internationally? Yes. In high school, I excelled at math, but was not very good at explaining my thought processes, so that ruled out teaching as a viable career. Somewhere along the way, someone told me about this new computer field. Off I went to UCSB to obtain a degree in computer science. At the time, CS was an interdepartmental degree. If you needed guidance and went to the electrical engineering department, they sent you over to math, and vice versa. Just graduating required a certain degree of perseverance. I spent junior year on a study abroad program in Madrid, Spain. Back then, the university there was a bit behind UCSB in computer science, so instead I took classes in art, sociology, and anthropology. I completely believe that the benefit of the world view that I received from that year far outweighed the advantages of spending an extra year in college, even though I had to work nearly full-time my final year to make ends meet. During my fourth year at UCSB, I juggled 2 part-time jobs. Through one of them, I met a man named Ron Jeffries. One day I crossed paths with him and was excitedly telling him about a summer job I had writing software for a company in nearby Goleta. Ron said, "Wait a minute, I may have a better job for you," as he had just accepted a job with a different high-tech company. He hired me then and there. Before graduating, I participated in the typical college recruiting process and had several excellent offers from which to pick. However, I opted to stay in beautiful Santa Barbara for several more years. I never imagined that having a friendly conversation with someone I barely knew would lead to my first professional job. You just never know. At my first job, I architected the software, wrote most of the code, did the testing, wrote the user documentation, and went to North Carolina to install the product and train the users. Every once in a while, I'd get to hire a new person for my team. After several years, my boss called me into his office and said, "We should give you the title of engineering manager." I said, "Why? I'm still doing hands-on engineering." He replied, "Yes, but you've hired 3 people and all on your own and had to replace one of them as well, so you are also managing the team." There are definitely advantages to joining larger companies where you get formal training. However, in a small company, you get the opportunity to just do anything and everything that needs to be done. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Eventually, I decided to head north to Silicon Valley, and I've never looked back. When I joined my first company in the Bay Area, Nestar Systems, the big joke was now they needed to quit holding engineering department meetings in the men's restroom, a change I definitely appreciated. Speaking of restrooms, one of the advantages of being a woman in a technical field is that when you go to conferences, it's great to see the line of men outside the restroom, while you saunter in and out of the nearby women's restroom. Nestar Systems was one of the first local area networking companies, connecting up Apple IIs, TRS-80s, and PETs, the latter 2 being lesser-known personal computers. You can see all these machines in the wonderful Computer History Museum in Mountain View. Our initial Nestar file server stored data on 8-inch floppy drives. I still recall the first unit with a hard drive. It was approximately 12 inches by 18 inches by 6 inches, and it stored a whopping 20 megabytes of data. No, that's not a typo. It was megabytes and not gigabytes. One major claim to fame for this company is that we developed the original sniffer protocol analyzer. We created this as a debugging tool for our engineering team, but our fearless leaders, Harry Saul and Len Shustek, recognized it could be a viable product. However, the people now running the company disagreed. So when Len and Harry left the company, they negotiated to take the intellectual property rights. Indeed, they created a product, a company, Network General, and a whole new sub-industry of high tech. Exciting times. My group at Nestar was always playing jokes on me. Once, while interviewing a potential candidate, I was walking through the cubicle area with him, explaining my management style. I was explaining that I am results-oriented, but generally approachable and informal, when one of the guys, Philippe, stuck his hand up above the cubicle wall. Mystified, I asked him what he needed, and he politely requested permission to go to the restroom. I will never forget the stunned look on that candidate's face. Other pranks included rearranging the molded keys on my Apple III. They wanted to know if I, as a touch typist, would notice. I certainly did. They crossed the line, however, when they realized I was on a diet and put a Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookie high on the wall in my office, out of my reach, but definitely in line of sight from my desk. I complain about the pranks, but I truly believe that a healthy sense of humor creates a strong team. When I was hired, I was told that my engineering organization would include the Technical Publications Group. However, it became clear that the manager of TechPubs hadn't heard this news. Either way didn't matter to me, so I didn't say anything to him. However, a few days later, he had an altercation with someone right outside my office door. Several days later, he came to me and said, "Well, I just found out you're my boss." And I said, "Is that a problem?" And he said, "Well, I wouldn't have been rude to that person in front of you if I had known you were my boss." I suggested that maybe on general principle he should try not to be rude to people. He then asked, "How old are you anyway?" I said, "How old do you think I am?" He thought about it and he said, 35-ish? I said, "Close enough." He seemed happy and went on. I still chuckle when I realize how relieved rather than insulted I was that he pegged me at a decade older than my actual age. But if it made him feel better, that was fine with me. This same company is where I received my nickname Jadsky. One of the engineers took my Unix login, J-A-D, and added the last syllable of my last name to it. One day, the director of international sales came to me and said, "Jadsky, I need a favor." Since she was always twisting my arm to get pre-release code for potential customers, I replied, "What is it this time, Grace?" She explained that Citibank did not want to send people to Palo Alto for training, but needed someone to come down to Buenos Aires. And she had analyzed our company and determined that out of 100 employees, I was the only one who spoke Spanish and was technical. So off I went to Argentina. Although I have been on many business trips, dozens and dozens since then, this remains my all-time favorite. Why? Well, I crawled around on the floor, plugging in cables, I debugged problems, I gave the promised training, and I also delivered an executive briefing to a group of vice presidents. Variety is the spice of life. At some point, I needed to scale the engineering organization to share the project management and people management responsibilities. Being a second-line manager requires different skills than a first-line manager. You need to learn how to influence without interfering with the leads or first-line managers. It may sound easy, but it definitely requires a conscious fine-tuning of your behavior. Some of my basic beliefs in achieving cross-functional cooperation were formed at Nestar. I remember one day when my marketing counterpart and I were having a heated conversation in what was referred to as the fishbowl conference room because all the walls were glass. Several of my engineers walked by and saw one or probably both of us pounding our fist on the desk. Later, after we wrapped up, they happened to be walking by again and overheard us talking in the doorway about going off to dinner with his wife. They came to my office and accused me of being a hypocrite because we were clearly upset with each other earlier. I explained to them then, and still firmly believe now, that it's important for each functional group in a company to be looking at the situation from different perspectives. There's a natural antagonism that works to the benefit of the company. As an engineering director, I am trying to optimize for solid technology with cool innovations and acceptable quality. I want to deliver product as soon as possible, but one can't optimize for everything. The marketing guy may be more focused on time to market implications. These are all important objectives, and we need the conflict. Just because we disagree does not mean that we do not like and respect each other. One industry colleague, who I both like and respect, is Adrienne Jardetsky. I met her when I worked at Olivetti Advanced Technology Center in Cupertino. Now a good friend, she's involved me several times in various Expanding Your Horizons activities. One year, I did a presentation to high school age girls about what's involved in being a software engineering manager. At the time, I led a group of about a dozen engineers and had a full-time administrative assistant. Yes, back in the days before the existence of voicemail and email and IM and online calendaring, the company provided much more administrative assistance. In order to make the PowerPoint slides more interesting, I asked my assistant Kathy to follow me around and take photos of a typical day. However, during my presentation, I was concerned that the girls would be intimidated by the fact that the group was almost completely men. At one point during my talk, right after I displayed a photo of the entire engineering group, one of the girls raised her hand to ask if I really got to work with all those cute guys. I guess it's all a matter of perspective. At some point in my career, I found myself frustrated with the corporate politics that are unavoidable once you reach a certain level. I then started noticing more interim CEO and temporary VP of marketing opportunities. I wondered if it would be possible to leverage my talent as an engineering director in some sort of temporary consulting capacity. I started systematically posing this question to various industry contacts, and while they all said, if anyone can do it, you can, they all said, but no one will hire a temporary head of engineering. Enough people said this that I think I took on the challenge just to prove them wrong. It was definitely true at the time that hiring a temporary head of engineering was not an accepted business practice. For years, my main challenge in drumming up business was the need to sell the feasibility of hiring an interim engineering director or VP. Time after time, potential clients would say, "Why would I want to hire a temporary VP of engineering?" To which I would candidly respond, "Most of the time you don't." If you have the ideal permanent candidate, then of course hire her or him. However, if not, then sometimes it's better to hire someone temporary than to let whatever problems exist deteriorate further. I minced no words. Hiring a consultant was option 2, but if your situation required pursuing option 2, then I was your woman. How did I get my consulting jobs? Sometimes from referrals. Someone who knew of me and became aware of a problematic engineering situation would mention me to the CEO of that company. Sometimes I found work after investing time in marketing and people networking activities. When my family and I returned in 2000 from a year of living in Madrid, I sat down one evening and went online and composed a list of about 14 VCs, venture capitalists, who were involved with data communication and telecommunication. I then sent each of them a short note summarizing my consulting services and asking them to forward it on to the CEOs of any companies that might benefit from my services. Within 24 hours, I heard from 2 prospective clients. 2 days later, I started an interim VPE gig with one of them. Normally, things didn't fall into place quite so quickly, however. Consulting is feast or famine. At times, I would turn away business, and other times, when I was ready to tackle a new assignment, nothing materialized immediately. In early 2005, I wrapped up a gig and then declared myself unavailable for a few months to catch up on family tasks. With a dual career family and 3 children, there was always something needing attention. Eventually, I was ready to hang out my consulting shingle again. And before even telling my friends and colleagues I was available, I looked at Craigslist to see what Vice President of Engineering postings existed. This was back before LinkedIn itself existed. There were 3 such postings, and I responded to each of them, stating that while I did not want the permanent job, I would be happy to help out temporarily. I heard back from 2 of them, and one of them quickly became a very interesting 8-month opportunity. Fast forward to where I am now in 2012. During my 15 years of engineering management consulting, I helped out temporarily in a variety of roles, several times as engineering director and a half-dozen times as vice president of engineering. I also consulted twice doing program management work, each time helping out the same vice president of engineering, Steve Martin. Steve eventually convinced me to join Ruckus Wireless and build a team to drive cross-functional program management. One of the selling points Steve used to convince me to become a Ruckus employee was that I completely lacked experience doing business in Asia. Given that I wrote part of this speech on the return flight of my 12th trip to Taiwan and China, I would say that this gap in my professional experience no longer exists. As you can imagine, my Spanish fluency doesn't help out at all in the Mandarin-speaking countries where I now travel. However, my awareness of cultural differences due to traveling and living abroad previously has been invaluable. I may not know exactly what cultural pitfalls exist, but I do know that some exist, enabling me to anticipate and ask questions and avoid embarrassment for myself and my coworkers in other countries. Ruckus Wireless designs and sells extremely cool Wi-Fi products and systems and is a successful growing company. One other tidbit about Ruckus is that we are one of the few high-tech companies led by a female CEO, Selena Lowe. Selena is a force unto her own. She's larger than life and a very inspirational leader. She has an uncanny ability to discern industry trends before anyone else. Whenever she heads off to customers or potential customers, we know she'll be sending back new requirements for specific innovations. Did I join Ruckus because it has a female CEO? Absolutely not. Do I find it interesting that in my 30-plus year career, this is only the 3rd time that in my direct upward reporting line in the org chart there's a woman? Yes. Over the years, as I've taken on increasing engineering management responsibilities, I've learned that the technology involved still matters to me. While I do enjoy managing people and projects, I don't believe that I would thrive in a role where I was not involved with technology. Regardless of what type of engineering degree you achieve, you can leverage that degree and background in a number of roles. Hands-on individual contributor in any of a variety of engineering specialties, a role in engineering management, be a product manager, or become a technical writer, join the technical marketing team, obtain a law degree and leverage your technical background there, do technical training or provide technical support, become a sales engineer. Last but certainly not least, you can even become CEO. Did I mention that Selena Lowe, the CEO of Ruckus, started her career with a degree in computer science from UC Berkeley? I cannot emphasize enough the value of an engineering degree and some industry experience, regardless of where you take your career. Whether you systematically map out your desired career path or do as I do and make it up as you go along, you will reap the benefits from having an engineering degree and the analytical skills you develop as an engineer. The bottom line is that you engineer your destiny.